Darkness, and to all defenders of this broken land, welcome to episode 25 of Arakko Public Radio for the week of February 1st, 2023. We are the 132nd best X-Men podcast on the internet, the casual X-Men chat show where we chat everything happening in Marvel's Mutants every single week. I'm Rod, and this is the Vox Ignis to my Kane Marco, my one and only co-mega mutant, Keegan. This week, we're going to talk about Legion of X number 10. We're going to finally let Dark Web rest in peace. And we are uncovering the greatest comic mystery ever in X-Force 37. And if you missed our update earlier in the week, we did talk a little about the island nation of Krakoa, even though we're actually about the sister nation. We did cover the X-Men vote in a riveting campaign special that you could go back and catch. I believe by the time this airs tomorrow morning, the vote will be completely over. And as of record, there's been another update that the competition is still less than 1,000 votes separating the top two. At one point earlier, it was less than 100. So it is a very tight race between whoever. We don't know who those top two contenders are.
I want to say, and I want to believe that one of the top contenders is Prodigy, because I and Kieran Gillen are correct.
Other news this week, we did find out the bridge from Sins of Sinister to Fall of X. In May, we're getting 4 one-shots called For the Fall of X, and much like Sins of Sinister, 3 of them are literally just books we're currently getting renamed, but those one-shots are Sons of X number 1, A Tale of Legion and Nightcrawler, on sale May 3rd, and that's coming from Spurrier and Phil Noto. The Heralds of Apocalypse number 1 from Al Ewing with Luca Pozzari on art, which is going to be the X-Men Red epilogue, if you will. Yeah. But it also, from the solicitation, looks like it's very much setting up the next big thing, which we'll talk about in a minute. Mutants First Strike number 1 is from Steve Orlando and Valentina Pinti, and it's an adventure of Jean Grey, Cyclops, and Bishop that's going to uncover a hidden truth. That's the one of the 4 that doesn't seem to be tied to anything we're currently getting. I do have a theory we'll get to. And then, finally, Kieran Gillen teaming up with Paco Medina in a book called The Sinister Four that will be Dr. Stasis, Orbis Stellaris, and Mother Righteous, and Mr. Sinister himself. The 4 Sinisters teaming up. So yeah, they all sound really great. That one doesn't come until July, I'm just now reading. I thought this was like a weekly series of one-shots throughout the month of May, but apparently they're spread out a little more than that, which makes me think things might slow down a little after Sins is over.
Which is nice.
That makes sense now that I'm saying it, though, because we are getting Immortal X-Men. We have 2 more issues coming, and the annual issue. So it sounds like maybe those combined with this the Sinister 4 one-shot might be a capstone on the Kieran Gillen-led era, because I have a theory. I think Heralds of Apocalypse, because if you look at that cover, it's Apocalypse. It is his family. They're standing tall. It's a very the next big thing vibe to it.
Absolutely. I agree. It looks very much like it's going to be like where we are headed now.
If you were right and Fall of X is Fall of Xavier, who would be the perfect person to step in and lead Krakoa? Apocalypse himself.
I would love if I end up being right, even though I'm pretty sure they have already said not, but maybe that was a misdirect.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that necessarily means Insabanur is literally taking over Krakoa. But it does feel to me like it is, and I don't want to say passing of the torch, because Sins of Sinister is the 3 of them working equally. But the X Office, since Hickman left, has been very much Kieran Gillen-led. He was the head of Judgment Day. He's the head of Sins of Sinister. To me, this feels like maybe this is a shift to where Al Ewing's going to be taking the lead for an era. Maybe Fall of X is his turn. Since it kind of had seemed like it was going to be Dugan's, if this is the case, if Fall of X is them handing the torch to Mr. Ewing, I will be a very happy boy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Ewing's been killing it. I'd love to see what a Ewing-led era would be, especially if it is a fall of Xavier to some extent, especially, we'll get to it, but especially after this week.
Although I'll be honest, today I want Xavier to fall a little less than I wanted him to fall a week ago.
Really?
We'll get to it. I want to get to my other theory, though.
Yes.
The Steve Orlando thing. We've
Yes.
got 4 one-shots. 3 of them are epilogues or are connected to the same ongoings as Sins of Sinister. And then we have Mr. Orlando writing a book about Jean Grey and Cyclops. Now, what book are they currently the stars of?
X-Men.
So what if, and I believe I've mentioned this before on pod, I've definitely mentioned it before in passing, what if Dugan isn't writing the team we're currently voting on?
That is true. That is something we mention at points in the election special too. Is like, will this be Dugan led or not?
I don't know why. I've had this gut feeling they're setting Orlando up to take over Adjectiveless, and this feels like another piece of that, like another hint at that coming together. I'm not excited for it.
You know, it's this. I have a thing with Steve Orlando. As many times as he has disappointed me at this point, there's this part of me that it's my Midnighter obsession part of my brain that just like can't let go of the fact that he wrote Midnighter, and I'm just like, well, maybe if he's writing X-Men, something will click and he can do something.
Like, I have a compliment for Orlando, but it makes me not have the faith you have. I enjoyed his Spider-Man 2099. He wrote the Spider-Man 29 Exodus, whatever it was called. It was a really fun thing where he brought in a lot of the other 2099 characters and he introduced some new ones, and it was a really fun little book. But that makes me think he can handle solo books. And there's those writers that can write a concentrated story on one hero and can't handle a team book. And Marauders makes me really doubt his ability to write a team book. So we're going to talk about it. If he takes over X-Men, this podcast will cover it and we'll give it a fair shake. Because believe it or not, we give every book a fair shake.
We really do.
I will be a little nervous. I don't know if there's anything else to say on the 4. We'll talk a little more about the Sons of X one once we talk Legion because it's tied to that. All 4 have glorious, beautiful covers.
Yeah, incredible covers. I'm also really liking just the kind of like the visual language of these 4, like just with the Before the Fall logo and everything.
Oh yeah, the logo is fantastic. It's a variation of, but just different enough than like House of X like font we've been using that it has a unique feel to it, or maybe it's literally just the fact that they kind of make it look like it's deteriorating more. Maybe it's the same font. I don't really know, but yeah, there's something about the visual that looks great. And as much as it's the one I'm least excited for, the Mutant First Strike one, I don't know if you've like really looked at that cover, but it's Jean, Cyclops, and Bishop crawling down into a cavern in Krakoa, but it's shaped and lit to be Krakoa's eye, like they're crawling into the eye of the island. That's so beautiful. I love that cover.
I think it's really good, and I think that one thing is I really like those striking covers with like a lot of negative space.
Yeah.
And this one really, really nails that aesthetic.
It plays with it perfectly, absolutely. And then of course, I mean, the Sinister 4 cover is great. I had posted in our Discord when this news dropped of like, how did they make Orbis Stellaris look like such a badass? Because he's front and center, just looking like almost like Charlton Heston, just like pure old man badass, and it's really cool.
Yeah, very much. Almost like a survivalist kind of look to him. Like it's very cool looking.
No, I'm very excited about what all 4 of these represent, even if they are the end of some of my favorite books. This is kind of a week of mourning, or a week of, one case not really mourning, a week of letting some things pass on. So do you want to talk about one of those first? Do you want to talk X-Force first? I don't really care what order we go.
Honestly, I could go any direction. Do we want to get X-Force out of the way?
Yeah, that's the most. Well, we'll get to it. I actually don't know that I'm as negative on the issue as usual, but I do have negative thoughts on this issue. So
yeah, I feel like it's the easiest one to just kind of get out of the way.
Yeah. X-Force 37. Written by Benjamin Percy, drawn by Robert Gill. The issue opens with Deadpool annoying everyone, and Omega Red tosses him off the waterfall again. Beast and Sage are freaking out because the big plan to track the Krakoan egg from last episode's gone awry, and they can't track it after Xeno bought it at auction. Domino suggests they give her back her memories, knowing how painful it would be. And of course, Beast is A-okay with it. So 29 issues after having them excised, the memories of her excruciating torture are popped back in like a VHS, and they realize, oh shit, they're hanging out in Genosha. You'd think the mutants would consider like keeping tabs on their old bases and civilizations with how often this happens. But anyways, in Genosha, the man with the peacock tattoo is regaling Max, the boy, who was like kind of a cliffhanger last issue, but they're just calling him Max now, so it's accepted that is the baby. So that's Max. Max is the little boy. With stories about his own childhood. First, he gives like this idyllic lie that's very like, oh, it's a lovely island with peacocks running around, but then Mac calls him out, so he tells the truth that he is one of many clones who lived in a dank cell. He'd have to like he had in his cell he had a sink with two knobs, and one gave him water, and the other gave him a protein paste that was made from ground up bodies of other clones. Well, he was just waiting for his turn to be the next experiment. Outside, he could like look out the window and see his dad's actual kids, Thomas and Philip, playing soccer, and he envied them and he wanted to become them. And then one day, Thomas made a mistake with an experiment, and Peacock Dude pushes him out of the way, saves him, but gets disfigured in the process. So once he gets bandaged up and is in a cell, Thomas comes to check on him, but instead kind of taunts him, and while getting taunted, Peacock Man attacks him, and the kid like taunts him with, Dad says it doesn't matter if it hurts because you're him, and he gives permission. And he goes, well, if I'm your dad, he's like beating snot out of him. So then he escapes, and then it's revealed. That's right. All along, the mystery that has gripped the X-Men fan community since 2019. This was like a top meme, like in that time when we were all like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to lock ourselves up for 2 weeks, so let's all jump online and spend some extra time in comic book land. Oh, I wonder who this Peacock guy could be. Let's figure it out. That's how long this mystery is out there. All along, that man with the Peacock tattoo is a clone of David Moreau. I know. I'm pausing to let the audience calm down from the fervor they've just been worked up into. The X-Force reach Genosha, and they're attacked by the Titans from Attack on Titan. While Max realizes he's just a plaything for Moreau 2.0, and he runs away. Meanwhile, the egg hatches, and out pops the X-Force amalgam chimera thing that's been on all the covers, where it's got half the beast's face, and a Wolverine arm, and a Domino arm, and it's like, First off, thank God that kid wasn't Quentin Quire.
Yeah.
There was certain elements within this fandom that were very adamant, very, very adamant that's who that was. I am so grateful that we don't have to deal with that piece of it right now.
Yeah, I'm glad that Max is just Max, even if they just kind of did it that.
And he still has the pink, so like I'm still assuming that's more he's influenced by Quentin. Maybe that's why he's smart enough to get away. I'm going to be very upset if they're just waiting a couple issues and still going to reveal he was Quentin all along. That would be really stupid.
That would be, oh God, that's, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. David Moreau had 11 appearances between 1988 and 1990. I was born in 88. When were you? 91?
91.
Okay, so this is a character that has not appeared since before you were born.
Yeah.
The two kids in it were also have also been seen before. That's why they had to include them out there playing soccer. Thomas had 3 appearances. He showed up and tried to fight Magneto for the right to control Genosha. Lost, died immediately. And then Philip is the most prominent Moreau with 24. Even if this had been Philip with his 24 appearances throughout the 90s, I still feel like this would have been an incredibly underwhelming reveal. Am I being a jerk in how underwhelming I consider this?
I don't think so. For me, like, here's the thing: we have made it well known that I am a newer X-Men fan that
Yeah.
has not delved into the history of the books very much. You know, I enjoyed the cartoons as a kid. I liked the movies. I read, a trade here and there growing up. That was my uh experience with the mutant kind. So I had no clue who the hell this guy was. I honestly, for real, on the real, everybody, I did not know this was supposed to be some big reveal. I was just like, oh, okay, it's I get it. It's like Islander Dr. Moreau. Like that was the extent of my, like, okay, I get it. Haha, great job again, Percy. Um,
Well,
so
because that is something he would do. He would 100% just create, and like
I mean, thank God I was smart enough to get that reference, but
the idyllic fake island was 100% him going way too on the nose with the. Did you ever notice the Engineer is named after the Dr. Moreau? Like that was meant to look exactly like the island of Dr. Moreau
totally.
from every
And at
adaptation
first,
ever.
I really thought that was the extent of it.
Yeah.
And then you were like, can you believe that it was just this guy the whole time? I was like, oh, he's a guy? Oh, he's like a guy?
Well, it's also the stupidest super or like villain, whatever. The Engineer is what he goes by, like engineer but with a G in front. Like,
yeah, is it Wrangler? Is it Calvin Klein?
so
Is it?
this became a thing on the Discord that was a discussion that ended up being had. But we are 37 issues in. This is the longest running X title currently. It's the only of the originals from the very first wave of Krakoa that's still on its original numbering. There is no reason that we should have a reveal now that's a hyped reveal that has no ties to what's happened in this book. You can tie it to 40 years ago, but it needs to also be tied to now. Tying it to 40 years ago as like an additional thing makes sense to me. Building it up, letting the audience theorize about it for years, because they didn't introduce Zeno as a concept. He has been a central figure and been intentionally used by Marvel marketing as like a mystery figure. The cover of this is who finally find out who's the man with the peacock tattoo. Like, they have leaned into this really hard.
Yeah.
And it feels like I made the joke. It feels like the editor came into his office and was like, hey Percy, you're almost at issue 40. You're gonna make that reveal soon, right? Yeah, get off my back. And then he like quickly had to like grab his Claremont like copies of the Omnibus off the shelf and be like, oh, that guy, I can make it that guy. Like that's what it feels like with how little this was hinted at or brought up. And I said this wasn't my least favorite issue. I actually had fun with a lot of the way the story unfolded. This was one of my least like hated Percy issues as an issue, but I have a huge problem with the reveal.
Absolutely. Like, by no means is it the worst Percy issue.
No.
I have hated Percy books way more than this, like frequently.
Absolutely.
It's a decently written issue. You know what I mean? But yeah, the reveal it did so little for me, like in the first place. And then finding out that it's supposed to be something and like be someone that makes me go, oh, whoa. I was like, it made it less. Also, I just want to throw it out there. Percy is no Alyssa Wong when it comes to writing Deadpool.
Oh, definitely no. let Alyssa write Deadpool from now on for sure.
Yeah.
So when I write my notes for these things,
yeah,
I go looking on like forums for like trivia tidbits because I do like to throw in some trivia, and I couldn't find much on this one, but I did see that the vast majority of reactions from even internet fans, let alone the dude who just goes in his comic book shop and is just following these books and isn't living online.
Yeah.
the vast majority of reactions are either who or people in your boat who are just surprised to find out it was a reveal at all. Like, they're either confused on who the reveal was or don't even realize that this was supposed to be a reveal.
Yeah.
That's a failed reveal.
Like,
if those are the two reactions you
no,
get.
absolutely. You don't have to go full Kylo Ren and completely kill the past. Like, I'm not saying that you have to do that. But if you are going to build to a reveal for this longest running book in this era, make it a little bit more something that people who hopped on with Krakoa
Could care about.
Could actually care about and have reference to.
Yeah.
Or at least sew in a little bit more stuff that would make people curious enough to go back and learn about this character.
What's the other thing is, like, finding out he's a clone who escaped him doesn't necessarily make me want to go back and read the original stories again, or wouldn't make me want to go read them for the first time. Like, it's not like this character is tied to who that guy was, really, other than the fact that I was a clone living in this jail and then I escaped. Like, the mystery of it feels especially messed up or like poorly executed when compared to Sins of Sinister, where we had all this fun of, we didn't predict everything that would happen in that first issue, but we called pieces of it. We're about to talk about a piece of it that we totally nailed. And that didn't hurt the experience. I feel like some people are like, well, if they dropped hints about, if they talked about the Gingineer in those 35 issues, people would have figured it out. Well, you're supposed to have a chance to figure out a mystery. Like, that's what makes a mystery fun, is not that it's easy to solve. You don't want it to be super obvious, but you want there to be tidbits. And you want it so that when you go on a reread, for it to feel like you built to it. Nothing in those 36 issues is going to feel like they built to this the way everything built to Sins of Sinister. Because
absolutely. It's like, give me a chance to feel smarter than Beast. Give me a chance. And then also,
the smartest guy on the island, why is he constantly coming up with these ridiculously stupid plans that fail every time?
Honestly. And then, I don't know, make it so that, there's fun hints throughout, right? One of my favorite things to do is, go back and rewatch movies that kind of have these reveals and see what I can find. And, that kind of, Knives Out and Glass Onion are great with that, where you can, go back and rewatch and be like, oh, shit, this was here the whole time.
Yeah.
I want to feel that. Why am I not feeling that?
Someone just the other day on, I don't know if it was our Discord or on another one I follow, but was like, oh, I'm rereading the first issue of Mortal X-Men. Dude, they were dropping hints all the way back then. I was like, yeah, it's great when they drop hints early. That's what we live for. All right, I have another Sins of Sinister related complaint about this issue. Why the hell, out of all of the concepts you could go with, are we having a Chimera story?
And, the least fun kind of Chimera.
Yeah, it's literally just what if we just smash, Frankenstein them together? We're knee-deep in three other ongoings are dealing with a really fun Chimera, world right now, and we're going to be 1,000 years in the future dealing with, generations of crossbreeding Chimera, and he thinks we're going to want, one more book about a Chimera, but without any of the charm, the wit, or, reason to exist. I don't get it.
Yeah, here's the thing. With Sins of Sinister #1, I was able to take pictures of some of the Chimera and send them to my non-X-Men comic book friends and be like, okay, who's cooler, Beast Lossus or Spider Crawler?
Yeah.
And, we had a debate about it. What am I going to do about the freaking flesh mound? Nothing.
Yeah. He's got a domino arm. Guys, isn't this cool? And then, you just get the Blank has left the chat for the whole group chat. All right. Should we stop beating a dead horse? We don't like this twist.
Yeah, not fun. I wanted to like it.
I think it's wrong that out of all the books that we read this week, this is the only one that's not ending.
Right.
All right. Legion, or should we one last time go into the dark web?
You know what? Let's end on a high note. Once more into the fray, into the dark web. Let's go.
All right. Follow me into my dark web. I'm going to miss getting to do the shadow fingers at least.
Yeah.
Dark Web finale #1, written by Zeb Wells, drawn by Adam Kubert. She called him Chasm. Chasm and Hallows Eve are gloating about taking New York, but Peter and Maddie are ready to take them down. The X-Men agree to fight the demons, which, you know what they've been doing the whole time? Like, that was the entire like, okay. While Peter goes after Chasm and Maddie puts her demon soldier back in line. A fun fight scene follows. Maddie calls in Bedlam, which is just Venom if you forgot, to do some bidding. Because apparently she doesn't just set him free with her face turned. She decides to keep manipulating him. Peter and Ben fight it out. Wreck Rap, the demon Spider-Man, helps. Gold Goblin and Miss Marvel show up to help prove they really did need to be part of the crossover. Maddie takes control of the demons without the scythe, showing she's always queen with or without the thing. They beat the snot out of Ben, and Maddie takes over again, and their resolution is they throw Ben in a prison in limbo for wanting the same thing that Maddie wanted and got willingly. And instead of taking the evil demon castle out of New York, they make it the public embassy for Limbo. It's interesting because we talked about the X-Men miniseries having total sitcom vibes.
Yeah.
This issue to me was like peak sitcom. Like this felt like a sitcom version of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Like it was like slapstick almost at parts.
Okay. Part of it for me is that Recrap is fun for like an issue.
Oh yeah, no, his first appearance was funny. He was so overplayed by the time we got to this issue.
Yeah. Like that's part of it, right? We don't need that the whole time at every moment. I got sick of that like so fast, and it added to that sitcom vibe where like everything just has to be like a little extra goofy.
Real quick, help me out. I read it, but didn't the Venom issue sort of not line up with this? Like, there was a scene where like the order of her recruiting Bedlam and then Ben showing up didn't seem to line up between the two issues, and I never went back to like see if it technically worked and was just awkward. But
so I'd have to go back and double check, but like, I guess Venom, Bedlam was fighting Codex. And then I guess the streetlights came on and Venom realized that Mom would be mad, so he had to go. And then that's when the finale happened. But I don't know if it lines up or not. Honestly, I feel mad about it because like it just took Venom out of 3 issues of progressing anything worthwhile. Yeah. And like, even though Ewing was still writing Venom, like very clearly was not what he was wanting to do with it, so it like suffered,
I kind of feel like this wasn't the original plan for Bedlam, right? Like we got introduced to all the different Venom, like all the different Eddie Brock's taken out of time. If you're not reading Venom, sorry, that was a spoiler. Spoiler alert for the Venom current story. If you're like somehow reading Dark Web and not reading the Venom issues from earlier.
If you're picking up the Venom tie-ins for Dark Web but not reading Venom, then I am not sorry that this just got spoiled because you need help.
But so that arc established that there was all these different Kings in Black, and like there was the extra like kind of feral one, and that was Bedlam. And then eventually the reveal was like, they're all Eddie Brock from different points in time.
Yeah.
But it very much felt like after the fact, Zeb Wells was like sitting around planning out this crossover and was like, oh, that red Venom you made, what if we put him in Dark Web? And that was why he went feral for a while and like Al Ewing had to work his way around it or something. It didn't feel like the natural version of that story to me.
It really doesn't, and it doesn't make any sense to me personally, and I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
Yeah. It's weird. It's unnecessary. It muddles what was already a muddy story that Ron V and Al Ewing were telling, and like I have a feeling they're gonna make it make sense by the end. But when their story's already convoluted and intentionally out of order, it was real crummy to have a quarter of a year, 3 full issues dedicated to this. Really sucked.
It has big War of the Realms energy from Cates' run, where it was just like, well, I guess we got to make this work somehow.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that Venom had no need and no business to be in this crossover event anyways, because like, what did it do? It did nothing.
This had no reason to be a crossover event.
No.
All of those minis, I wasn't kidding when I said it literally felt like Gold Goblin and Miss Marvel showing up was literally just to be like, hey guys, this is why our book's tied into this. Like, it's the only reason they popped in at the end there.
It almost felt like, you know what? This is perfect. We're talking about sitcoms. It feels like when an actor gets a new sitcom later and they don't play the same character, but they bring in actors and actresses from their last sitcom to play those characters that they were on, and they like meet them for no reason. I hate using this as an example because he's a horrible man, but Tim Allen with Last Man Standing had a bunch of characters from Home Improvement come on and play like their characters from Home Improvement on Last Man Standing. And it feels like that.
I have one that's a slight, I think he's a slightly better human being. George Lopez has a new show that he's doing with his daughter, and the last episode of the first season is the like cast of the original George Lopez show come for dinner, and it's really it's a funny scene, but it's the same idea. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
That exact same idea with someone that I believe is better. God, I hope.
As far as I know.
I can't have two childhood favorites ruined. But it's that exact feeling with Miss Marvel and Gold Goblin and Venom, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, at least Venom, Maddie used, but she used it a really stupid way, and they could have not tied the story into it. They could have literally had Maddie grab like a past version of Venom and let Al Ewing's book keep doing what it was doing, and just said like, hey, there was a couple weeks where there was a weird time traveling past Venom loose in Dark Web and not affected the core book.
Allow me to ask you a question. Why did they need Venom when they had the Insidious 6 or whatever? Why not just have a Venom of that?
Venom's selling, baby. I just saw the list of top selling books for November and was shocked that Venom is in the top 10. Like, I figured, no offense to it, I really enjoy it. The Rom V and Al Ewing book was too convoluted to be at top of the sales chart.
No, I mean, absolutely. But, like, you know, like, story.
I get what you're saying, though. Plot-wise, there was no need for it.
Because
absolutely,
if you're disconnected.
Why couldn't Wreck Rap have just been Venom? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, if you're disconnecting Eddie from all the character growth that he's had, there's no reason to have Venom as he is now in there. Especially when it directly conflicts with the characterization of Madeline Pryor and her goals, because she wants to have the memories of her child. So why are we robbing Eddie of the memories of his son?
Well, that takes us back to the finale. We can talk about how the treatment of the different characters makes no sense in relation to each other.
Right. There's nothing.
Ben wanted the exact same thing Maddie wanted.
Oh, sorry, Ben.
Maddie didn't make a choice to be a better person. Jean offered her the memories, and then Maddie made the choice to do better.
Hey, Rod, let me ask you something. If I were to tell you that both Spider-Man and Jean Grey have a sandwich and only one of them will share, which one would you assume would share the sandwich first? And why is it absolutely Peter Parker?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I want to know how they literally negotiate with the American government to establish political relations between a version of hell and New York City to the point of a legally recognized embassy, but don't think, hey, maybe we should ask him if he's willing to share his memories. How does that never come up?
I don't. It's so dumb. It's
like,
just so dumb.
You could maybe convince me Peter Parker doesn't think of it himself, although he should when he knows literally he was trying to force him to eat an apple. I also like how the last issue was spent the entire issue trying to convince us it was a worthwhile plot to convince him to eat the apple. And in this issue, the characters openly make fun of, like, Chasm literally thought getting me to eat an apple was a good idea.
They literally are just like, wow, Ben is so dumb and stupid Can you believe it?
Ben is such an idiot for doing that plot the writers wrote. What an idiot Ben is.
Oh my god.
How does that not even cross like, no one in editorial was like, hey, the readers might have an issue with Peter Parker being so much meaner than Jean Grey. Like, that might become a thing with the fan base. Not a single person in editorial brought that up.
And I don't even say any of that stuff like as a slight to Jean Grey. I say that as like Peter is like factually a more generous human, like person, because Jean's not a human.
You Google who is the most selfless superhero, and if it's not Superman, it's going to be Spider-Man. Like, he is the Marvel like symbol of selflessness.
Yeah.
He would in a heartbeat give those memories to a dying kid with cancer to, like, he would to anybody. Why would he not give them to this clone who he's apparently genuinely upset is gone evil? And he's like, oh, Ben, I wish I could help you. He visits him at the end of the issue. He's like, if only I could think of something to help you. I know Jean literally did something to help her clone in the exact same situation. I have no idea what she did, and I'm not willing to go ask her. Like, that's what it felt like. It was so pointless.
Absolutely bizarre. Ugh.
The embassy. 100% stupid idea.
Yep.
But it's 100% going to be like an X-Men base. Like, it's supposed to be a dark parallel to the Treehouse, right? So we're going to have like Jean will have her X-Men in the Treehouse, and Maddie's going to have her team there. Yeah. Which makes me wonder if it's really going to be the Uncanny. Like, I don't think it's the Uncanny Avengers anymore, because
maybe it's going to be the Dark X-Men.
Yeah, I think it's going to be some time. Oh, I wouldn't mind. I actually liked the Dark X-Men. It would have a different meaning now, but
yeah, but that same idea, X-Men Dark,
Yeah.
And it'll be Madeline Pryor and Havoc, and
I actually really enjoy that. I still think Havoc is definitely on whatever in that there's that free comic book day issue that's got Captain Krakoa on the cover, and there's no reason for Cyclops to go back to being Captain Krakoa, so it's what makes me think it has to be Havoc.
Probably.
All right. I have nothing else to say on the finale.
Neither do I.
Do you want to talk like anything more about the crossover as a whole?
I did not like it. It stank. I like it less than X Lives and X Death. And
I was gonna wait. I had originally said we aren't gonna do a re-ranking of the X crossovers until after Sins of Sinister, because I didn't know if this really counted. And now that we've read it, I feel like it does count. And I think I see more value in it than you do. God, I hate the tie-ins. Like, there is no reason for this to have been anything more than the Amazing Spider-Man issues and the X-Men issues. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of bad vibes. Like, I described it somewhere else as I did not enjoy the ride. I like where we ended up. Like, I like that we have a Maddie that's on good terms with the X-Men. I like that we have a Maddie who has a home base for her team. The Spider-Man side, I think, is garbage. But if we're talking about X-Men crossovers, I still see more value here than X Lives and X Deaths. But I completely get your point of why you would have more fun with X Lives, because...
Well, and the thing is, at the end of the day, like, I get why you dislike X Lives and X Deaths more than this. However, for me personally, it messed with my favorite.
I feel you. I get you.
Like, that's where my problem is. That's why it's worse.
I will also say the art in this slayed. Like, there was some of the times that did, like, this last issue, this Adam Kubert finale, and I think he did the like bookend books. There was some gorgeous stuff in here. We had 2 emotes for our Discord server off of panels in here. Like, Kubert does faces so well. He does reactions so well. There was things I liked in this crossover. Do I think this was the shit sandwich in between Judgment Day and Sins of Sinister, and like they had to come up with something great if they were going to put something in the middle there, and they didn't? Absolutely. This was bad. If we do our rankings again after Sins of Sinister, there is a gap between X Lives, X Deaths, and Dark Web and everything else that is completely uncrossable. Like these books shuffle for me, and like these two will never be anywhere near the normals. Like, there is a gap This is on the same tier. It is on that bottom tier with X Labs.
And I don't want to spend too much time on dark web anymore, but I do think, what was it that you were quoting? I think it was Zeb that was saying, like, you can read just the parts you want and it'll be a cohesive story 3 different times.
That was his sales pitch. Could you imagine reading just the Venom books? Could you imagine?
I would be so confused. Can you imagine? Like, no, absolutely not. It's a lie.
Well, I'm still laughing at that first Spider-Man issue that was literally every page had a read this book for more context. Read this book for more context. It was like a homework assignment in a comic book. It was absurd. Yeah. All right. For one last time, let's climb on out of this web, finally.
Freedom.
Now I can delete that background for reals. All right. Now for the one I'm really upset to have to say goodbye to.
Here's what we came here for today.
Legion of X. Written by Spurrier and drawn by Netho Diaz. Opens with Charles realizing how much he screwed up. The altar is under assault by an astral plane technarchy summoned by the Babel Spire that Nimrod is building on Krakoa. Legion can't fight back because Charles used a secret Shi'ar psychic Trojan delivered via touch when he arrived. The infamous Daedalus. Blindfold begs Charles to help fight it and to save his son, but Charles says he has to go save his people, and he heads back for Krakoa. As Vox Ignis, Juggernaut, and Lost brawl with the drones outside the Babel Spire, Lost finds on the ground the earpiece lets her remember Forget-Me-Not, and puts it in and remembers him. So she calls him, and he warns them of Nimrod's invasion and the fact that they need to get inside. They knew options to get in, and portals don't work, all this stuff doesn't work. But finally, Vox Ignis suggests every rider needs his steed, and he hops on Juggernaut's back. In Germany, Nightcrawler is begging someone to help save Black Knight after he wounded her instinctually last issue. Margali corrupts him further and sicks him on the Orcus agents. The Technarchy is about to eat Legion, but Charles returns. He couldn't abandon his son, and Legion, in a moment of trust, opens his mind to let his father in. This allows them to together push back the Technarchy, but it also lets Charles see things as David does. Every psychic burden, every piece of information, and every cry for help. Charles breaks down crying, realizing how much stronger David is than he could ever be. Mother Righteous is watching and unimpressed by the sappiness, so she switches her attention back to Vox Ignis, who is standing on Juggernaut's back, giving both the powers of the Spirit of Vengeance, which is easily the best page of art in this week. It's gorgeous. Since Nimrod has possessed Warlock to hack Krakoa itself and separate him from Cypher, they fight their way towards him, with Forget-Me-Not encouraging them to ignore his wounds because he's laying critically hurt and just get to Warlock. When they finally reach him, Warlock begs Cypher to kill him, who hesitates, and the Sentinel, I put throws, but I think it was actually a laser, one of those Sentinel laser blasts. But anyways, he pushes him away, and so Forget-Me-Not has to be the one to kill him, and he sacrifices himself in the process. In the ensuing, explosions and wiping everything out, chaos ensues. Lost's earpiece falls out, meaning no one remembers Forget-Me-Not's sacrifice. The survivors leave to warn Warlock, and Warlock alone. In Bavaria, Nightcrawler continues to anguish, but Margali conjures from him the Hope Sword, an embodiment of his character. It's kind of an equivalent of Magic's Soul Sword. And then Mother Righteous arrives to gloat over his unconscious body, where she finally unmasks to reveal she is the Sinister of Hearts. With, by far, the best of the Sinister designs.
So cool.
It's not just a heart, it's got these cool, tribal, it matches the other tattoos we've seen on her, but amazing
so cool
character design. A Ghost Rider, or a Ghost Rider, variant, but riding Juggernaut. How has that never been thought of before? And so amazing.
Cool. Oh, I loved it so much.
But they build it up really well too, because he suggests doing it, and then you switch back to the Charles scene. So I was wondering, so is he gonna have and then you get to him, and yeah, he's full on. He looks like Ghost Rider's bike with a full all where he's normally flesh is flame, and then Banshee as Vox Ignis on his back. Such an amazing page. Just pure glory. This is a book I was really anxious to talk about because I feel like out of every, I don't want to say it's the most controversial. Like there's other books that get like, but this is one of the most hit or miss, where like people either love this book or give it a lot of flack.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people don't give this book a fair shake because it can be pretty tough to follow issue to issue, in that like you have to be open to not having every plot dealt with in every issue.
Right.
But both arcs end by bringing everything together beautifully. And this issue really wraps stuff up in a way that if you've been intimidated by it, I'm encouraging you now, go read Legion of X as a binge and like trust that you will have the answers, even if you get a way out there plot thread in issue 3 that you're like, oh man, I don't want to wait 6 months to know what's going on. It is so worth the read. I think this is a beautiful book. This is a poignant piece of art. You know, it's got a father's arc where he goes from untrustworthy and deceitful to truly understanding his kid in the pages of this story. We've got a man who only ever wanted to be remembered, literally sacrificing his life, knowing he's most likely going to get forgotten. We've got Kurt's hope, even after his own mother betrays him again, literally manifesting as a sword. There's like a poetry and a beauty to this book that none of the other X books have.
No, I absolutely have to agree with you, and I wanna like second co-sign whatever that. Go back and read it if you were nervous about it, because like when I first started Legion of X, like when we were in issue 1, 2, 3, I was like, I might not be smart enough for this book.
Yeah.
Like straight up, I was like, this might be a little too high-minded for me.
We both have wavered on it at points.
Yeah, but like coming full circle now, seeing all this happen, I'm like, no, you gotta trust the process. It all makes sense as long as you just trust the process.
Yeah. All right, we need the specifics. I just had to make that I had to swing for the fences on it.
Gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful.
I think that Charles scene with him literally breaking down, crying after being inside Legion's head is the single best Charles moment we've gotten since Krakoa started.
Like I can agree to that.
Like we've seen him torn down. We've seen what a piece of shit he is. Like we saw even just as recently as Judgment Day, him completely ignore his kid when the progenitor took the form of Legion and like was like, Dad, I need your help. And he didn't even acknowledge the cry for help and like got the thumbs down there. And so for him to finally have that recognition is such a great moment that like I know we're heading into the fall of X and we're probably heading into him facing some real comeuppance for all the things he's done. And he still deserves all of that. There's nothing redemptive. Like he in no way redeems himself by finally feeling that, but there's a catharsis to seeing him acknowledge it that is really cool.
And what I love about it is, while it is a very satisfying Charles scene, and it's like one of my favorite Chuck moments, you know, of this era, it still very much shines a light on him that is like, he's still not great, because it literally took him being inside his son's head to be like, oh, you were serious.
Yeah. You know those things you said weren't bullshit. Oh, yeah. Your feelings? Oh, it's hard to have like all of these powers, even though I know how hard it is for me to have my much smaller powers. Like
right. Like even though he has this moment of understanding and all of that, it still is like until it happened to him, until he felt it, he didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Absolutely.
And so it still shows how flawed he is as a person while giving this satisfying moment.
Well, that's all of these moments were like there was moments of growth, but they were also bittersweet. It was there's some forget me not.
That page.
So I don't know if I sold it. Literally as they're leaving, you see his skull. Like his skull is sitting there in the ashes of Nightcrawler's home.
Not only do you see his skull, but like the team is walking away, essentially saying like, "Hey, at least the only person that we lost is Warlock, who can maybe be brought back through data and
Yeah.
everything." Like
Lost is saying that when she just pages earlier had like very, very happily remembered the date they shared, whatever it was, 2 issues ago, 3 issues ago. Like,
and says like, "I will not forget you."
She went from a passionate yeah. So that leads me to, we know Sons of X is an epilogue to this story. Is that the end? Because this book the story of this book started in Way of X. So is Cy Spurrier just going to move, or at least some of these threads moving to Cy Spurrier's presumed next project or not?
I feel like they should. I mean, we've had a connecting thread since Way of X all the way to here, and like it's been a few books,
Really, even before that, because he first worked with Legion in his version of X and Legacy, pre-Krakoa, and that's where the I rule me. When he says I rule me to Charles, that is a line he says continually throughout X-Men Legacy in 2017. It was a while ago when Cy Spurrier wrote it. Like, that was a running like mantra of Legion. So Cy Spurrier's planted a lot of seeds over the years, and he's got a lot of threads going. I don't want him to be done with Nightcrawler. I really don't want him to be done with Legion. I really like the supporting cast here. I will finally admit, after reading this issue, my vote in the X vote was to Juggernaut, because we know Cy Spurrier's now leaving him behind. But I want to see him keep working with Vox Ignis. I think that is a really fucking cool creation. That's going to be a real bummer if this is it for him. I mean, no matter what, we got 4 more issues. We got Nightcrawlers, which is 3 issues, and then we've got Sons of X. But I really hope we're getting some announcement for a late summer launch.
Yeah, me too.
Anything else you want to chat about it? The Soul Sword is a really cool concept. Kind of makes me want him to do a full Lantern Rings, I don't know, all the other embodiment
swords. For Kurt to have the Hope Sword, that's just so good. I mean, obviously, the one thing we still need to chat about is Mother Righteous.
Yeah, we talked about how cool she looks, but you're right, we didn't really talk about her.
I mean, it was a given, but Called Shot, you nailed it.
It was not all me. That one was a co-sign with Joe.
That's right.
It was, I hit him back. We talked about it a little bit elsewhere, because he's kind of taken some soul credit there that I don't know is really fair, because he hadn't even considered that there was a X-Men Red related or a Heart Sinister when we started talking about it. And he threw her out there as an option, and then was like, but I really think it's, and he named a couple other people. And I latched on to it once I started thinking about the naming convention, because it did. Now that we know them all, they all do have that naming convention. Yeah, Dr. Stasis, Orvis Stellaris, Mother Righteous, Mr. Sinister are all adjective title and descriptive noun for second name. But the thing that got me was Tumult, introduced in issue 2, I think it was literally a chimera of gods. That was the perfect seed to lead us to her being it. And I even talking about how the mask wasn't right to cover a heart. They handled that perfectly too. She just has an amazingly glorious heart design as her heart. It's the most inspired by far.
I'm loving it. It's so cool. Her design is great. It was sewed in there very well. I'm still kind of holding out, thinking it might be a clone of his wife instead of himself.
I could see that. All we know is that there was the 4 tubes and they all left. It totally makes sense that he had.
And I mean, I could see the original Essex having the mindset to be like, oh, well, the heart has to be her, that kind of thing.
Before he truly lost his will,
Yeah, because you gotta remember, who was building these things. It's not the lunatic that we have now.
Yeah. It was the slightly misogynistic. Yeah, it was the other
slightly
jerk.
misogynistic, slightly less lunatic.
All right,
What a
go
movie.
read Legion of X if you didn't. It was a
Yeah.
beautiful book. One of the best endings I've read in a long time. I will go to bat for this book. I understand why it's not for everyone, but it was for me. You ready to go around the Marvel Universe?
Let's go.
Last week, we agreed not to read Scarlet Witch #2. So guess what I did?
Did you read it?
I read it. So the main story, the Orlando written story, was about her like helping Vision's daughter Viv solve a mission. So I don't know if you ever read Tom King's Vision book, but it's a good story. He wrote Viv with a really weird voice. The dialogue felt really off. I think I'm just not a big Orlando fan currently, but it had a backup. A backup I don't remember seeing in the solicit, but a backup written by Stephanie Williams and co-starring Storm. And this was a great read. So basically, Storm shows up and just wants to check on her. She's like, hey, like, it's been a little while. So it's taking place a while after Judgment Day. She's like, hey, it's been a while. Like, you okay with after Magneto died? And they kind of have a like bond, like girl to girl chat and talking about like Storm says, I am very confident he died peaceful and he saw. I'm confident he died seeing Ani. He died happy, and Wanda's like, oh yeah, like he definitely like, that if he earned anything here and that, like he saw her and she was proud of him. And then she's like, hey, you know what though? Actually, since you're here, I could use some help. Like, I need to go get some supplies, and their supplies only 2 magicians can get. And Storm's like, I'm not a magician. And she's like, no, like, come on, let's go get the supplies. And so they have this bonding trip where they go to this island that's hard to get to, and like, she's like, see, Storm like moves some fog out of the way, and she's like, see, you're a magician. She's like, what are you talking about? She's like, that wasn't normal fog. Like, only magicians can see through that. And so they have this whole thing about Storm's like magic roots, and they bond. And then when they finally get back home, like they talk about how they'll always have each other's back. And Storm's like, man, now I feel even more awkward. I voted against bringing you back on the Quiet Council, which I kind of wasn't expecting him to bring up. So that was funny. And then they go separate ways. It was a nice, almost like epilogue to Magneto's life, and did not feel like it belonged as a backup story to whatever the hell Orlando's doing with it. So that was really it. If you could read just the backup issue, even if you have to sail the 7 seas to grab it, I think that story is worth reading.
Okay, all right, excellent.
I think that's all we had around the Marvel Universe, though. So
yeah.
Next week. Only 2 books on the board, actually. With Dark Web finally over, I think we finally are going to have a little bit quieter of a schedule.
Love it.
Storm of the Brotherhood, #1, which will be awesome. I'm confident.
Yep.
I was surprised I thought for sure Immoral would be the first one, but I guess because of Sinister 1, they can move right into Storm stuff.
Yeah.
And then Bishop War College #1, which looks like a really fun mini. Cool. It's basically him preparing the next generation of mutants on Krakoa. Should be awesome.
Love it.
Anything else you wanted to talk about?
I think that's everything.
All right. That's going to do it for us. We have that Discord server. It has been really active lately, actually. I think we got about 24 people in there now, but it's pretty lively. If you're willing to sit through an hour of us talking here, you definitely would enjoy hanging out with us over there. Mm-hmm. And then make sure you like us. There was an embarrassing moment on the Discord where one of our fans was like, oh man, Spotify's calling you out. She posted a screenshot of when she reviewed us on Spotify. I was like, you're one of the first to review. So I know there's about 40-something of you that listen between Spotify and whatever else Spotify like feeds to. So that's a lot of you that should be reviewing the norm. So click the 5 stars. Give us the help.
A review would be great. It would help us so much.
If you type a review, I will read it on air. You could type whatever the hell you want, whatever embarrassing thing, I will read it on air if it's given us at least 4 stars. I don't know. Gotta be careful. But yeah, and if nothing else, tell a friend you think might enjoy us. And tell a friend that might enjoy the X-Men but has never given it a chance, because we make a good sales pitch sometimes. I'm that nerdy pop over on all the socials. Keegan is Bulk Ranger. Until next time, remember that a writer